Ti he Maori ora, whakaroko, whakaroko. Whakaroko ki te taki a te manu e karaka nei. Tui tui, tui tuia. Tuia i ruka, tuia i raro, tuia i roto, tuia e waho, tuia te here takata. Ka roku te pō, ka roku te pō. Tuia e kāwai takata e heke mai nei. I hawe ki nui, i hawe ki roa, i hawe ki pamāmao. I hono ki te wairua, ki te whai au, ki te āmarama. Tihe Maori ora. Tuatahi ka mihi ki te rukarawa, mōna manaka taka nui kia tāta katoa. E tūtakaka ahau te whakamoe me te whakakrori ki te rukarawa, mōna manaka taka nui kia tāta katoa. Mai o ka rā ke muni taina mai ki tēnei rā. Kaori ka mutu ka mihi ki ai me te inoi ano huki, mana tāta katoa, he manaki e chaki i ka wakatoa. Tuarua ka mihi ki te tai ao, ki ka mauka, ka awa, ka wahi tapu, ka wao, huri no te moana, kei reira, a whakaraupo, me te moana nui a kiwa, tēnā koutou katoa. Tua toru, ka mihi ki ka mate, kua hia ki te pō, ka huri ahau ka rātou kua hika rā ki ka topito e whāo te motu. Ara, ko Reino Kamo, me te tahai, me Yvonne Curry, huri no ka mate ka Waikanui o Aotearoa, me te ao nei, haere ka mate ki te whare tuturu o te takata. Haere, haere, haere. Oti, rātou ka rātou, tātou ka tātou. Nō reira, te huko ora, rauraka te rama. Tuatahi ka mihi ki te pau karakia e tēnei wā. Ka mihi nui kia koe e te rakatera. Ka tau ki te raki mari e kia koe mō te tautuku kia mātou tēnei wā. Ka mihi hoki ki te minata, Nanaia, Mahuta, e chaki kia mātou. Huri no te komiti pauwhakahaere, tēnā koutou katoa. Te iwi kaika, kaitahu, ka iwi o te mutu, ka haue whā, ka manuhiri, tuaraki, huri no ka taka te katoa, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. E karakia timata, kia tau te raki mari, o te raki e tui ho nei, o papatūnuku e tako tōnei, o te tai ao e awhi nei. Ki roke i a tātou, kia manaki mai tātou, kia pai te huarahi o tātou, tūturu whakamaua kia tīna, haumi e hui e, tae ki e, kia ora anō tātou, kia ora Kim.
Kia ora tahu, thank you. Tēnā koutou katoa, ko Kim Kelleher aho. I'm Kim Kelleher. I work with Littleton Port Company, heading up the environment and sustainability field there. Thank you very much for joining us today. We're thrilled to have so many participants. Today, you're going to hear from 5 of us who are all leading sustainable development programs in complex business environments. We're progressing the sustainability programs across interconnected sustainability goals. We all represent companies who have a common shareholder, and if you're from Christchurch, that's you, because the companies are all part of Christchurch City Holdings Group, of which the City Council is a main shareholder. So that's how we fit together as a kind of a company's family. The group of companies includes Enable, Orion, Christchurch Airport, Kinetics, Littleton Port, EcoCentral, CityCare, so many strategic assets for the city. I'll just let you know also at the outset that Melissa Keys, who was to be one of the speakers from Enable, is unfortunately not going to be joining us today. But our format today is a series of lightning talks that will be followed by a breakout session. We may have some time for a Q&A. So as the speakers go through, if you have any particular questions, please pop them in the chat and we will definitely get to them if we can. Following the lightning talks, we'll break out into small groups and the speakers will join you there to discuss designing collaborations and the factors for success and how we can all action this after the summit. We'll then reconvene for a short report back to the group before we round out the session. Each of the speakers today is going to reflect on their experience and perspectives regarding SDG 17, partnerships, and focusing on collaboration for system change. We're all aware to address the significant challenges that we have and to make progress across the Sustainable Development Goals. Collaboration is absolutely key. But how does it work in business, and what are the conditions for success? And how are some of the large businesses in Christchurch tackling these challenges along the way? So that's what we hope to share today. Our first speaker is Tahu Sterling, Maori Development Advisor at Littleton Port. Tahu's going to take us right back to the beginning and discuss and consider collaboration as a fundamental aspect of human development. He shares how Te Ao Maori and Maori worldview provides an excellent frame for sustainability. Tahu discusses his really exciting collaboration that he's involved in at the moment, which is leading organisational culture transformation anchored in tikanga, not only at Littleton Port, but now across the entire CCHL company group, a true collaboration impacting across multiple companies. Claire Waghorn from Christchurch Airport then dives deep into the newly formed Sustainability Collaboration Group for the CCHL companies and discusses how harnessing different expertise across these groups enables us to make more progress than we would singularly. She'll also discuss how getting us to think at a group level is enabling us to amplify our impact, in particular around greenhouse gas reduction. Caitlin Burns then gets us into the nitty-gritty, describing her practical tips for collaboration at a different scale. She's designing a program to engage and inspire green teams at Kinetics. Pip Newland is then going to cover the people side of things, sharing insights on the importance of carefully considering the group composition and purpose right at the outset, and how to avoid an echo chamber, because that can really stymie things sometimes. So our overall aim is to spark ideas and to highlight the power of collaboration at different scales, and to share actionable insights from the programs that we're all involved in. However, it's not about us, it's really about you. And we want to harness the collective expertise that's in this room. So we will be breaking out into small groups at the end of these lightning talks, where the speakers will also join those groups for the discussion. We'll discuss how to design effective collaborations and what makes the most difference to that success, and also what we can all take away from this to action in our sustainability opportunities from here. So with that, let's jump right in. It's a pleasure to introduce my colleague from Littleton Port and friend, Tahu Sterling.
Kia ora Kim, kia ora anō tātou, ko waiau, ko aura ki te mauka, ko waika, taki te awa, ko ka te wheke, kaukararata, tuahuriri oku hapu, ko kaitahu, whānau apanui, Ngā te parau, oku iwi, ko Tahu Pōtiki Sterling ahau, nō reira tēnā koutou katoa. So my name is Tahu Pōtiki Sterling and I am the Maori Development Advisor at the Littleton Port Company. It is indeed an honour for me to present together with Kim, Claire, Pip and Caitlin about this important kaupapa of collaboration and sustainability. Collaboration is not new and indeed it is one of the key factors in how all of our ancestors came out of Botswana, Northeast Africa 200,000 years ago. We developed languages and told stories which enabled us as Homo sapiens to populate the earth, but without collaboration, we would not have survived. Collaboration for me has been fundamental in everything I've done in my life, from the early days of working in community and educational organisations to promoting and managing Māori health within a range of applications. In 2014, I started working at LPC as a cargo handler, lashing containers on board ships, driving 100-ton straddles, you know, big toys for big boys, that sort of thing, loading cranes and trucks over any given 24/7 period. Today, as a Māori advisor for the Littleton Port Company, the third biggest port in Aotearoa, I would not be able to achieve my role without working with key staff in achieving things such as implementing bilingual signage, promoting Te Wiki o Te Reo, running the Waiata group, and utilising Mātauranga Māori in designing programs to grow LPC's cultural competency and our cultural organisational culture. My role within the port has grown, but one of the exciting things has really happened over the past year. I've had the opportunity to expand my work across the CCH group, which is a group of companies under the Christchurch City Council. There's about 10 of them. And initially, this is helped along by using a new online tool that we call Te Whāriki. Te Whāriki is a collaboration tool. It's like a form of internal social media where you can post opportunities, programs, events, and invite participants across all the companies. It is a power of collaborating that enables us to expand my reach into not just 600 plus port company people, but potentially all the people within the CCHL group of companies. Finding key people within the other companies has been instrumental in making a difference. And they help to provide a support network where we can co-design and support each other. This expertise can be shared across the group, and that helps accelerate the progress. Now, you might think that I am a fluent speaker of Te Reo Māori, but I am not. English was my first language because, unfortunately, my father, Dr. Ropata Waha Waha Sterling, was not allowed to speak Māori in school. However, after the Second World War, and he was in the 28th Māori Battalion, the repercussions of all that, when he came back to New Zealand, Māori of his generation, quite a few of them, they thought it better to learn the ways of the Pākehā. However, he never forgot his learnings of mātauranga Māori, which has been handed down through the generations. For example, the pātere and the chant that I use at the start of the mihi comes from my grandfather, Dr. Eruera Kawhia Whakatane Sterling, who was born in Raukokore. It's a little wee seaside settlement in the Bay of Plenty. When he was 3 years old, he was chosen by an old queer called Hiria and her husband, Pera, who took him to live in a Neko hut in the bush. He stayed there for 4 years, where the birds and the animals were his only friends, and the natural world provided everything for him. There, my grandfather undertook training in a special whare wānanga, or house of learning, where he was taught about the tribal genealogies, the history, and mātauranga Māori, the Māori worldview of life. Today, Māori worldview, Te Ao Māori, acknowledges interconnectedness, the interrelationship of everything, of all living things and non-living things. This holistic approach seeks to understand the total system, not just parts of it, but the whole, which is at the heart of our environment today. So through the natural process of mihi mihi, which I've done today, I started with my grandfather's chant, which is about listening to the call of nature and remembering who we are. We all descended from the ancient homelands to where we are today. Then it's about joining the spirit and moving into the daylight, to the world of light, which is about having awareness of reality and thereby moving into enlightenment or knowledge. Then I offered my expressions of thankfulness and praise to that above us all for the blessings bestowed upon us from days gone past to this day, thereby acknowledging through prayers the higher power which binds us all together to help, protect, and nurture us for all days. Secondly, acknowledging our natural environment without whom we are nothing. Te aki te taiao, te aki ngā tangata. If we look after the environment will look after us. The central principle being to nurture the reciprocal relationship between people and the land. Thirdly, I was acknowledging those who passed on beyond the veil of life. Two important kaumata from down here and a friend who recently passed away, as well as the many from COVID from around Aotearoa and the world. 4.5 million, I understand. Next, I was saying greetings to Colvin for his karakia and mihi, to the Right Honourable Nanaia Mahuta, to the organisers, to Kaitahu, and other iwi and all conference participants to welcome. This process has been practiced up and down Aotearoa from days past to today, acknowledge all elements which cooperate in making these types of events successful. In other words, mihi mihi, I believe, is another form of acknowledging and collaborating to formulate ideas to make a difference. Finally, in my karakia, my opening karakia, it means may the peace and harmony of the Sky Father and of the Earth Mother and of the all-embracing natural world be bestowed upon us all, protect and nurture us all, and may we all journey well. In closing, I pose this question to you all. Ia hata mea nui o te ao, he tangata, he tangata, he tangata. What is the most important thing in the world? 'Tis people, 'tis people, 'tis people. Which is true to a point. But what is it that really drives you? What is the drive? What is the fire that drives your passion for collaboration and sustainability? For me, I'm reminded of Kaitahu's whakatauke, their proverb, which is, mā tātou a mō ka uri a muri ake nei, for us and our children after us. So for me, I do it for my grandchildren. I do it for my mokopuna. So the next time you want to collaborate with someone in sustainability, ask them, will you step in the fire with me? Thank you for listening. And I will now hand it over to Claire, who will talk more about sustainability. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Kia ora.
Kia ora koutou, ko Claire Waghorn aho. I'm the Sustainable Transition Leader for Christchurch Airport and a member of the CCHL Sustainability Working Group. Thank you, Tahu, for that superb explanation of Te Ao Māori approach and the beautiful tauparapara. I want to start by reiterating a bit of a disclaimer. We're a group of collaborative sustainability practitioners, not behavioural scientists. Given our various roles delivering sustainability programs and the urgency with which we face impending planetary boundaries, social challenges, interrelated global crises, it's not terribly surprising that when approached about the idea of collaborating with like-minded folk to amplify our sustainability impact, we all signed on. But it is fair to say that we learn as we go, and that's what I want to share with you all today. One of our first steps as a group was to think about our collective aspirations for collaboration. What do we want to achieve? First off, growing our capabilities. We will grow our individual and collective capabilities by learning from the diverse skills and experience within our group. Tahu's Mataranga Maori approach, Pip's system thinking approach and legislative background, Kim's applied science and biodiversity leadership, Caitlin's environmental management and carbon knowledge, and Melissa's NGO, city and regional council work, and my previous role with the Green Party involving climate action and consensus decision making. We have the same vision, but bring completely different experiences to the table, and recognized early on the possibility to grow our capabilities is a key strength. We also want to enhance our impact. We will make a greater tangible difference to our city and community by working together. If we identify and explore opportunities to scale or accelerate sustainability as a group, rather than focusing on what is possible within each individual company, we can really amplify our impact. And of course, we want to collaborate. We want to work in a way that pioneers a new way of operating for the mutual benefit of companies that we work for and the CCHL group. So next we turned our thoughts to what our aspirations for how we work as a team are. And that's really critical as a foundation piece when you're setting up a team. So we had a good session on this and decided that as a sustainability working group, we will be collaborative rather than hierarchical. When we come together, we maintain a group first orientation. We will be inclusive, and that's about respecting each other's knowledge and contribution and making sure that we're accessible to each other in our language. And we all know that sustainability is full of acronyms. So taking the time to unpack those so everyone around the table is following along. We will be open to experimentation rather than trying to achieve perfection, and we will be reliable, maintaining the integrity between our words and our actions and the quality of our outputs. So as a group, we pretty quickly worked out key areas for collaboration and impact across the group and identified a range of project initiatives we were eager to get started. Waste circularity, 100% biodiesel blend, future fuels, hydrogen, renewable energy, integrated reporting. The list is very exciting and very long. So we quickly realized we'd actually missed a step. We needed to figure out our structure. This is the importance of recognizing we can't do everything and need to play to the strengths and priorities of our group parts, rather than just creating a larger workload for us all. Our collaboration framework involves our sustainability working group taking on a governance and strategy role in relation to group sustainability, and recognizing that implementation would be led from an operational level across all companies. So the way that works is the sustainability working group take on a strategic role, considering climate risk reporting, ESG integrated reporting and reporting platforms, as well as thinking strategically about what projects to explore and recommend at a group level. The projects themselves, decarbonising fleets, HVAC systems, biodiversity waste, they happen at an operational level, involving operational members from across our companies. And the sustainability working group takes on a governance role, involved but overseeing in relation to our strategy rather than implementing. And now the fun part. I really want to tell you about our first collaborative project undertaken, and that was to develop a group approach to greenhouse gas emissions reductions, a framework of sorts. We started by recognizing the value in taking a principled approach, balancing people, planet, and prosperity, understanding that sustainability in its truest sense sits at the intersection of those spaces. So the first step is to measure. We complete annual independently verified greenhouse gas emission footprint reports according to the ISO best practice standard, and we make these publicly available. Then we use those to develop a collective group greenhouse gas emissions footprint to give us a different high-level view that could present new opportunities for impact. The next steps is about setting targets and reducing emissions. So we set science-based targets consistent with keeping global temperatures within 1.5 degrees, and then we implement a group emissions reduction plan that is aligned or ahead of those science-based targets. Then we embed the emissions reduction targets into resource allocation and planning cycles so they happen. Now, this is all underway within each CCHL company, and what we are doing is repeating this process at a group level to look for more opportunities of scale and collaboration. Next, we have adaptation. In addition to individual companies doing this work, we also want to develop a group approach to climate risk disclosures, compliant with TCFD, another acronym, Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosures, basically compliant with best practice standards and our national climate change risk assessment. And then we want to share our just transition frameworks. This is about bringing everyone along, considering who is going to be most vulnerable to this transition within our society, and making sure that we're thinking about that and including them. Hello, we have an extra guest. Hi. So finally, we want to share more broadly. Be proactive about our learnings with others. Take an open source sustainability approach. We only win if we all get on board. With open source in mind, I have a 6-step on your emissions reduction journey resource to share that reflects this emission reduction framework that could be used by any organization. And this will be shared on the SDG Summit website or in the chat box. I'll do it when I stop chatting. So with that in mind, I would like to, I guess we have much more work to do and more work streams to progress, but now it's time for me to hand over to Caitlin Burns from Kinetics, who is going to share some steps she has undertaken to develop a green team there. Over to you, Caitlin.
Awesome, thanks for that, Claire. So kia ora everyone, my name is Caitlin and I'm the Sustainability Advisor at Kinetics Limited. Today, I'm going to be chatting with you about the process of setting up a strong base for a green team to thrive. A green team is a fantastic opportunity to collaborate with your team and can be really useful in both small and larger organisations. They allow people to feel included and heard. They also bring a lot of different perspectives and expertise into one room to focus on sustainability, which I just think is beautiful in general. So, the trees that are slow to grow bear the best fruit. This is the quote that always comes to mind when I think about forming a green team. This is because prior to pulling a green team together, you need to decide on a few factors to make sure that the green team can be that productive, collaborative team you want them to be when they start their journey. So these things are things like, what will their purpose be? Are they solely an ideas team, or will they be running projects? How do you ensure that the team has support from your higher ups? And what does that support actually look like? Will there be a set person who guides that group, or will it be left to be a more organic thing? How many people do you want on this team? Remembering you want people to discuss, so size smaller to allow that. Will it be a set team, or will members be rotating in and out? And how much time do you require the team to give, and how often? How do you ensure that they are able to take that time? Because you want people to feel supported to do so. And now that you have this information, you need to think about who's going to be on this team and how will that be decided. If you're a smaller business, this might just be putting out feelers and having a chat. In some smaller businesses, everyone knows everyone, and it can be really easy just to have a chat amongst yourself to decide these things. But if you're in a large organisation, this may need to be done in a more structured way. So let me run you through that list using kinetics as an example, just to put things in a bit of perspective. So for kinetics, the purpose to begin with is a fact-finding mission and an ideas team with room to grow into a project team as time goes on. Kinetics has a lot of different arms of people doing really different things outside of each other's view. So as one sustainability person, even if I was really knowledgeable in the industry, I'd miss a lot. And I need an individual from each area who is willing to talk about where they see opportunities in their area. So I'm going to rely on their expertise to help us grow sustainability. For support, I spoke to our senior leadership team and got their backing to progress with forming this team. And for the team, given the purpose, it is going to be guided by me because of that kind of fact-finding side of things. It'll be sized to about 6 to 10 people, including myself. Because kinetics has a lot of different arms, I will try and keep it as small as possible, but I do also want to be inclusive and include each area. If the interest is there, it'll be rotated every 4 months, because at kinetics, having a sustainability person is a really new role, and part of the way that I can create awareness around sustainability is to create discussion. If people are rotating in and out of the team, the people no longer on the team will talk and share ideas with the current team members. For the situation at kinetics, the time required, the support, and who are going to be on the team is all connected. I'm rotating myself currently actually through team meetings to discuss, put off obviously, thank you COVID, but will be when we get back. I'm rotating myself through team meetings to discuss kinetics progress and plans and sustainability, as well as put the idea out there of a green team and see what interest I gain based on that. After this step is complete, I'll get feedback from managers about who they think are interested. Kinetics is really tight-knit, so that can be a useful source of information for me, as well as post on our work forum and our board and our cafe area. For us, this is because we have a lot of field guys, so not all of them will actually see a work forum, but they do always see the board in our cafe. And why I talk about creating that structured base for a green team, which maybe seems to extend things out a little bit. When you think of a green team, just get people together, have them in a room, have them chat. But sometimes that ends up meaning a green team can be quite elusive and not make the traction that you envisioned they would, which is why I'm such a fan of that quote. It really is useful to take your time. And if you set a strong base with a good purpose and structure, you'll be able to gain that traction you want to see. And so that's me there on green teams. I wanted to run everyone kind of through an action plan, and hopefully that'll really help people take some steps if they're looking at doing things like that. Cool. And next we have Pip Sharing. So I'll hand over to her.
Kia ora, Caitlin, and hi everyone. I'm Pip. I'm the sustainability lead at Orion, which is the electricity lines company for Central Canterbury, and I feel like this is just such a fantastic bunch of people to follow, and thanks for including me in this session. It's actually been a real privilege for me to work within this group over the last few months. So, yeah, it's been great. I feel like it's just beginning as well. I thought I'd kick off my section with a talk and with a story and a question. So I'll give you the question first, which is really, what is the purpose of your collaboration? And I'll let you kind of think about that while I'll tell you a tale. So bear with me if you've heard it before. A group of blind people encountered an elephant when out walking one day, and one felt the air and said, wow, this is a giant fan. Another felt the trunk and said, there's a snake. The third felt the tusk and said, no, this is a spear. And the fourth felt the legs and exclaimed, you're all wrong. This is nothing but a giant cow. And the 4 people sat down and continued to argue about what it was. And finally, disturbed by the noise, a local woman walked up and said, you're all feeling the same thing. Put the parts together and you'll know the whole. So this approach can be dressed up and called context analysis, but the premise is the same. The sum of a group's knowledge can add up to something greater than the parts. So in the case of sustainability, you can use collaboration to get a feel for the whole system you're trying to impact, or you can use the group to leverage combined knowledge to tackle a shared identified problem. So I'll refer you here back to my first question, which is, what is the purpose of the group you're looking to form? Is it to solve a problem? Is it to innovate while doing so? Is it to support one another? So arguably, these are all solving problems of one kind or other. But in doing so, it's really important to recognise who you've included in the conversation. Consciously or not, we're all attracted to like-minded people. So in forming the group, there needs to be a level of self-awareness. You need diversity of experiences, of knowledge, or resilience. So what voice isn't there? What part of the elephant will you miss if they aren't included? And if you can't bring them in person, what safeguards do you have to ensure their voice is heard? So our C3 group's a bit like that. It's an engine really to share knowledge and recharge, and then tackle specific problems as breakout collaborative groups. And we might not have the dissenting voice in the room, but we can test each other about how we've explored the problem. And tech solutions can often really help in this area. So the Te Whareiki platform that we referred to is used by CCHL, and it enables collaboration across all employees within the CCHL group of companies. So it's a pretty cool tool to use. If you're real about using collaboration to tackle problems properly, there also isn't much room for ego. So the group is trying to design a system shift. So one person isn't going to know it all or have all the answers, and Caitlin hit the nail on the head there. So be willing to have those rigorous conversations, as in doing so, you're paring away all of those assumptions and unconscious bias that you've carried into that collaboration. So I came into Orion as a complete newbie to engineering, electricity, and sustainability as a thing. So it was actually a real gift. So I could approach conversations with that beginner's mind. I was quite happy to ask the dumb questions. But equally, my background, which is in resource management law, meant that my inherent skeptic kept me testing answers until the system picture started to appear. So working across business units to understand the problem or get engaged in a common passion, and then tapping into wider collaboration and opportunities has actually resulted in some pretty cool outcomes. And I'll share a couple of these now. So The first one is that we have a problem with possums climbing poles and causing outages around our network, and this particularly around Banks Peninsula. And we recognise that the traditional approach of metal collars around the poles wasn't always effective and didn't address the root problem, which is possums. So we needed to change our approach, but the question was how? So was it a design solution? You know, what other opportunities were there? We needed to expand the way that we thought about the problem and bring some diversity of thought into that solution. So we identified that possums are a problem for more than our network. So damage nearly every type of native species in New Zealand, and as a result, DOC isn't the greatest fan of possums either. So we teamed up to tackle the problem in a collaborative way. What was the result? Well, instead of installing possum guards on poles, we partner with DOC to enable an extra ranger focused on pest and possum eradication across Banks Peninsula. So in areas where those possum control operations have been through, we're seeing the numbers drop significantly through post-control catch checks. We're also learning how to better target possums. And we're also learning which methods work best, that targeting, and how other pest species can impact possum control operations. So the main impact for Orion is that we're seeing less outages around this area due to possum strikes, but actually, as is often the case with a collaborative project, there are co-benefits too. The Wildside project that was recently started aims to create a predator-free zone across Banks Peninsula, and our partnership is helping make this a reality also, which in turn will be helpful to the establishment of our native forestry partnerships as part of our plan to deal with our residual carbon emissions. So it's turned into a really cool little ecosystem, all starting from being willing to kind of bring in a bit of a different way of thinking about a problem. And I'm also part of a wider Lions Company group that focuses on sort of sustainability challenges across the industry. And we meet up once a month to discuss these and share knowledge. And this has already generated ideas and connections that would never have occurred if it all just continued squirreling away in our silos. That's from exploration of climate risk that's specific to Lions companies, to the ability to factor embodied carbon into design decisions. So Lumo 364, which is the Tifariki equivalent for our industry, is launched by the Energy Academy, is a great next step to speed up that connection between people within the industry and hopefully draw more of those sort of collaborative groups together to get after some problems. I suppose my final point is really that without diversity in your collaboration, whether it be knowledge, experiences, or resilience, you'll end up all thinking you're dealing with a giant cow. And without the willingness to let go of ego and test your solutions and ideas with diverse viewpoints and really listen to the answers, you'll be arguing about what you're dealing with until the time to act has passed. And that's it from me.
Wonderful. Thanks, Pip. And thank you to all the speakers. You can see why this is such an amazing group to be part of. And as Pip said, I feel really fortunate to have this group of professionals to be able to engage and collaborate with. It's just an absolute pleasure and gives me so much energy to work with this team. And as mentioned by Claire, the ability to kind of tap into the different expertise and different styles and thinking across all of the different people involved has been, you know, really instrumental in helping me make progress in my own role as well. So yeah, it's an absolute pleasure. Now we're going to get an opportunity to break out into rooms and have some really good discussion. So the idea here is that we discuss and share our insights into designing effective collaborations and maybe drawing on some of the points that the speakers have raised, but also drawing on your own expertise. Share practical tips on what you've found makes the most difference to successful collaborations, or maybe even ask for input from the group in your room for help with the collaboration challenge that you have. Erica, we have a few conversation starter points and things. Do you want to pop those up on the slide, and maybe people can just take a photo of that so that when we move into the breakout rooms, you can kind of bring yourself back to this purpose. So when you move into the rooms, it might be a good idea just to identify somebody who's willing to provide a report back once we conclude in the breakouts, because we'll pop back into the main session and then we'll do a round of all of the different groups. And we'd love for you to share what insights were shared in your group about designing effective collaborations, or some of the tips and tricks that you've picked up that you really want to apply. So we'll have a chance for a bit of a brief report back. So if you've got your phone handy, just take a snap of that slide, and then when we move into the groups, you can kind of refer back to it. We will have the speakers joining all of the groups. You'll see us pop into at least a couple of groups. So we would love to be part of those conversations and keep the momentum going. So with that, Erica will pop us out into groups, and we'll be there for 15 plus minutes, and we'll see you back for a bit of a report back after that.
All right. So just to re-explain how the breakout rooms will work. All right, I think we're ready to go. Kim.
Wow, that was fun. That was great. Joined a couple of really interesting discussions then. Would have liked to have continued that for a while longer. But I'm going to love to hear from the people in the various groups. So we're just going to move through and ask someone from each of the rooms just to give us a brief snapshot of the insights that were shared in your group. I think we've got about 10 groups. So that will give us, you know, just a very quick opportunity for some feedback. So maybe a minute or so. We'll start off with the room that has Ben and Mark Croning in it. Could one of you please?
Yeah, I wrote down a few notes for what we discussed. Yeah, so some ideas was communicating and engaging, making sure you're doing that versus just talking at people. Yeah, I thought that was really great. When the engagement happens in the process and making sure it's actually useful, you know, like as in there's no point just talking to people at the end, you know, because it can't achieve much. That the place of engagement not necessarily happen at a table, you know, it could happen in a place where people feel more comfortable, an environment they associate more with. Something you mentioned, Kim, thought was really good was the difference between partnership and collaboration could potentially be that a collaboration requires people to give up something rather than more a transactional process with a partnership. I thought that was really interesting. And oh yeah, another really interesting thing was in groups who has the leadership in a meeting, and you could potentially give that leadership to a person who has the least power in the relationship, or rotating the leadership around the group to make sure everyone can play their part in it. Yeah, those are some of the key points I wrote down.
Brilliant. Thanks, Ben. Some
Yeah.
great stuff there. The room that had Sarah Mole in it, could someone please report back? That's also got Annie and Heidi in it.
I'll say a few words and then anyone else can join in. I don't think anybody took any notes, so we'll just try and remember. We talked a lot about trying to gather diversity of opinion and how you approach people who might not necessarily be drawn to what you're trying to do, and invite them to have a voice as well. And we talked about making a kind of a safe space for people to voice their opinions and making sure that everybody's heard. Yeah, anything else anyone wants to add?
You guys mentioned while I was in the room about how collaboration is a process. It's not something that is achieved. It's a process that you go through and a mindset. And I thought that was really amazing. And also whether, when we talked about values and whether they're aligned, whether they have to be, and that in itself, collaboration is a type of value. And I thought that was also really quite an interesting discussion, as well as the importance of staying curious.
Great stuff. We have the room with Sho Isagai.
Right, it's Sari is the one who's reporting, so I'll pass on to you, Sari.
Okay, thanks. So we talked about two of the questions. The first one was, how do you ensure the right conditions are in place, which actually was basically that values one as well. So our first point there was respect for mana whenua and te tiriti o Waitangi, and having that as the absolute base or foundation from which everything else can grow. But also building on that, then having trust for and good relationships with other organizations, being able to trust they're going to be doing what they're doing while you're doing what you're doing. And that's going to actually help things flow so much better. And finding the common goals and the mutual benefits between those organizations, which will then help build that trust. The other question we talked to was around what aspirations we have or what we'd like to see happening. So that was sort of things like empowering people to make decisions within their own lives, giving them the tools and the ideas and then letting them do their own decisions, having a greater impact through collaboration, having a clear goal that you're working towards. So Sho was talking about ending homelessness, for example. And if you've got that clear goal, that will then help everything else flow behind it.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, the next one is the room with Sophie McInnes.
So we looked at the collaboration and trying to move forward, which was the last one. And one of our aspirations that one of the members was saying that she's trying to do the refugee collaboration with Kiwis and trying to build one house for refugees, one house for Kiwis. But not only that, to help refugees when they come to the country. And she's found it very impossible. She's outreached to so many different organisations and there still hasn't been able to find somebody to collaborate with. She's been involved with universities, students, Helen Clark, MPs, councils, but there was nobody that she can find an attachment to. So it was quite interesting, particularly from the point of view that where there are ways to make change and make a difference, that you really do need collaboration partners. And with that came through that she looked at international and educational opportunities for people coming to New Zealand, and put together an app that she's now developing so that you can get people who have come to the country talk with other Kiwis and other ones. There is the other side of the app is the fact you can get refugees talk to refugees, so they've got someone to walk that journey through with. But much as she's done many outreaches, she still hasn't been able to find someone to walk that journey with her. That was one aspect of it. The other aspect was, and a lot of key people have been spoken to, and we talked about collaboration with other students because she is a student herself at this time, and with students worldwide. The other part that came through was software, the fact that the essential essence of having people who are properly qualified in software. We have too many people who know a bit about software, but they actually don't have the high-powered knowledge that's essential to make programs and communication work. And this is letting us down in New Zealand massively. We've probably got the right training and the right trained people and the right software, but we haven't got anybody to implement it because people aren't prepared to pay the price, really. But that is something that's essential to make change and to keep it working. Anyway, it was one here. Thank you. Did anybody else want to say anything from that group?
Thanks, Catherine. Wonderful. You got into some real detail there. Thank you for sharing the feedback. Charlotte, Brewer's group.
Kia ora, everyone. Our group, we sort of started talking about at the beginning some insight from Tahu that in order to have successful collaboration and next successful collaboration, you need to have the head support, but then the tail will follow. So that's saying that we need like clear leadership and boundaries around that. But also we kind of broke this down and looked at how meaningful collaboration involves long-term relationships, which involve a large element of that is trust. Trust is essential to help break down barriers, and obviously it's something that's not going to come within a short space of time. Linking back to that wonderful quote from Caitlin that the trees that are slow to grow bear the best fruit. And then opening up communication channels at all levels is essential. We also talked about the challenges which come up with when coming up with people who have diverse or different viewpoints to your own, or who kind of counter your own viewpoints, and we kind of championed the concept of mana kiatanga, and how it's often a massive challenge to stay true to yourself. at some times, but at the end of the day, we're all part of this human community, and just to have love and respect for each other.
Thanks, Charlotte. Love and respect, you can't go wrong. The group with Dory Reeves in it.
I think that was me. Yeah, so we had some really interesting discussions. We talked a lot about, as Charlotte said, about building trust and how that takes time, that communication is something that isn't instant. You need to have long-term discussions to nurture those relationships, and that will help you to collaborate as well with the other parties. And then Kim made a good suggestion for us when we were talking about when is it a collaboration, to really understand what the drivers of the relationship are. Is it a collaboration or an alliance or something else, so that everyone's clear about what their expectations are. We had some good points about everyone being open about the scope of their practice or their guidelines, where they're coming from, what their drivers are, so that everyone can get out of the collaboration what they're intending at the beginning. And then a really good point about just taking your time. You might need to reevaluate the goals and outcomes and adjust the timeline sometimes, because you won't necessarily be able to deliver to your ambitious timelines that you set at the beginning of the collaboration. It's really fun. Thank you.
Thanks, Paulette. Great stuff. The group with Donna Sutherland in it, please.
I think that was us, wasn't it?
Yes,
looking for
that's
Donna's
right.
face. Interrupt me, any of our team, by all means. We were talking about relationships, the importance of the sort of kaupapa being bigger than any of the individual parts, and how it introduces this idea that there's a difference between having the collaboration that we're doing off over there with those people versus collaborating on the core work that we do. And it seems that within our group, the effective collaborations that we've seen have been where it's kind of core work. It's not just an extra thing that you have to do over there. So that speaks again to the importance of the relationships. And then also there's actually quite a lot of sort of well-known academic stuff around collaboration. So people might have heard of things like Collective Impact or Collective Impact 3.0, which came out of the Tamarack Institute in Canada. Here locally, I'm in Aotearoa, Christchurch. We've got a couple of really good examples of long-term effective collaborations, things like the Canterbury Clinical Network, which is a clinician-led alliance that essentially works to leverage data and clinician practice to advance patient outcomes, health outcomes. It's not a formal organization, but it has lots of people working in and on it. Yeah, and there's a lot of structure and process and thought that sits in behind it. So I'm just going to copy paste a bunch of links of things that are useful if people are serious about trying to do this stuff. It's like there's actually a lot you can learn just from reading a little bit from some successful examples. So there's some links.
Wonderful. Thanks for sharing that, Jason. And I totally agree about the Canterbury Clinical Network. I've had the opportunity to have some really good discussions with some people involved in that, and I've learned a lot about the approach of a collaboration. And yeah, I highly recommend people look into those resources, I guess. And if you can get in touch with any of those people, it's a great opportunity to learn from their significant experience in the setup and how that functions. So good one. The next room was the one with Claire Murray in it.
Thank you very much. We had a lovely group from across the country, a mixture of academics, local council, community people. It's hard to be original as the ninth group, I feel, but I'll try only to pick on some of the hopefully new things. So I think one discussion we had was around how you lead a group effectively without ego. So there was a really useful contributions from some of our group talking about a lead facilitator type role rather than a sort of a lead manager. And I thought that was really
helpful. That the manager is not the decision maker, is just really facilitating those who have content knowledge. And there were two really good points from a couple of different people who said it's great to give ownership to those that have that professional knowledge. And it's also great to have a member of the team who's really interested in efficiencies. So they might not know a heap about sustainability, but they know how to get stuff done in relation to the topic of sustainability. I think our conclusion really was around when you're setting up a project or a group, that the vision and values have to be fundamental and foundational before anything else happens. And that was a great reminder for me on something that I'm working on, because there's some of us that are just charging into it. So it's great. You just got to ground it and start and make sure that everybody's on board. So does anybody else from my group have anything they want to add?
Thanks, Claire. Some fantastic, very practical reflections there. You got into some great discussion. The group with Nicole Lynn in it. Also had Maya and Regina in it.
I think they had a few problems with their mic. So,
we did most through video's gone. We did most of the stuff through chat because there were some problems with mic. But so basically, the alignment of shared goals and outcomes. Need for data sharing, but often this can be a showstopper with different organizations. However, there's a need to reduce silos between different groupings so that we can collaborate better together. A diversity of voices, improve inclusion of as many different groups and levels and peoples as we can. Agreeing on who owns the data, how it's used. Again, kind of coming back to this diversity thing, there's no single source of truth. So making sure everyone's truth is understood. Stakeholder engagement at all levels. How to measure success. For many people, economic success is not always the key factor. So making sure all different factors are combined together. How to overcome skeptical thought so that we don't hinder or distrust and other such factors so that we can get a better collaboration together. And make it personal and actionable so that it's we can actually achieve things. And Wonderful. If I've missed anything, please speak up.
Thanks so much. And just finally, the last group was the one with Lynn Roberts and Elizabeth Espin in it.
Thanks. Kia ora, everyone. I'm Darren. I'm from Enable. This is Liz. She's from Christchurch City Council. And we had a pretty enlightening jam session with Anna, Varun, Skeenan, Lynn, and a special guest appearance from Tahu, which was really nice when he popped in there. And we just went over, we had a real general discussion. And some of the things we came away with was just educate and facilitate. Collaborative teams educate and learn from each other. And along with that going is the idea of sharing. In order to be successful collaboration, you've got to be willing to both share and also open to people sharing with you and not thinking you have all the answers and be willing to kind of check your ego at the door. Diversity is the spice of life, and effective collaboration is so important. And it's so important to successful collaboration. We came up with sharing is caring. Again, we just, we covered that one off. Collaboration breeds engagement, and it's nice to know you're not raging against the storm alone. Just the idea of someone standing there with you is actually really useful. So even if you achieve nothing, at least you fail together. Feels a bit better. Also, we discussed some practical things like having a framework is very important, but not so rigid as to not allow for unique interactions. We think it's really important when you're working with diverse people and diverse communities that you allow for that and just be open to that idea. Speaking across points and speaking different languages was brought up as a sticking point. So not as in speaking literally different languages, but as in different organizations each have a language, right? What you have to come up with is a way of all understanding each other and cutting through that. And then consistency. If you're going to collaborate, you got to like really stick at it and do the boring kind of parts of the nitty gritty and kind of be all in it together and share the load again. And yeah, that was pretty much it. It was really cool.
Brilliant. Well, thank you all so much. You have just collaborated to create a masterclass in collaboration. Because I'm going to be watching this back. There's been so much amazing insights and content shared there, and some brilliant expertise from across all of the participants. Unfortunately, we're out of time, so we won't be able to get to any Q&A or anything like that, but I appreciate your contributions, and thank you to all the speakers. Thanks to Erica for the tech support, and also to Evie Cookson for helping us prepare for today. Go well, enjoy the rest, and we'll hope to see you in some other sessions. Tahu, would you mind closing us out, please?
Better unmute myself. Kia ora koutou katoa. Ai, koutou ke tō kōrero e pāna kinei kaupapa. Fantastic listening to all the views and ideas. So kia ora, thank you for that. Kia tau te raki marie e tēnei wā. Kia hora te marino, kia whakapapa paunamu te moana, kia tere ka rohi rohi o tātou, ki runga i a tātou, te huarahi pai o tātou, aroha atu, aroha mai. Nō reira tēnā koutou katoa. So may the seas be calm, may the shimmer of summer glisten like the pounamu, dance upon your pathway in life. So God bless you all and keep up the good work. Kia ora.